I guess you're probably aware that large companies like P&G, Kellogg's or Toyota are using different brands to appeal to different types of consumers. And in the PC hardware segment, we have something very similar. For instance, there's ASUS putting a tough logo on the more budget-conscious products, while using the shiny ROG brand extension to cash in on people's desire for a more premium product. And of course, there's Dell and Alienware. And yeah, you would expect that the premium brand's product, Alienware's monitor in this case, has the better performance, better design, and maybe even a better build quality, and also a higher price. But yeah, it's more expensive because it's the superior product overall, right? Well, that doesn't have to be the case. Okay, let's take a closer look at these two monitors. The Dell branded product is a 27-inch 1440p monitor. It has an IPS panel and a refresh rate of 165 Hz. And the Alienware? It's using a 27-inch IPS panel as well, also 1440p, but the refresh rate, brace yourself, is a whopping 180 Hz. Yeah, that's not a huge upgrade. The price difference, however, is pretty steep. I have these linked down below if you want to check the current pricing in your region, but at the time of making this video, Dell's monitor can be had for just about $250 US, while the Alienware costs about $360. That's an insane price difference for monitors that have essentially the same specs. So, is it justified somehow? Like, is this Alienware branded monitor really that much better when it comes to stuff like image quality, response times, or color accuracy? At the very least, Dell Alienware are trying to create the impression that this monitor is superior and the technically more advanced product. Like when you look at the images from the Amazon listings, it looks like the Dell was a much older monitor. I mean, look at these huge bezels. The Alienware branded monitor on the other hand looks super modern with like no bezels at all. But yeah, in reality, their graphics department just went totally overboard when photoshopping the wallpaper onto the Alienware monitor. The bezels on the real monitor don't look like this at all, and it's actually pretty deceiving what they've done here. If you put both monitors side by side, the bezels really look identical. They're about 7 to 8 mm wide on both monitors. Nevertheless, the Alienware has a few design gimmicks that the Dell version doesn't have. The stand design is a bit more complex, and its cable tunnel is a bit nicer. And of course, there's RGB on the back of the monitor. But that's pretty much it. The ergonomics are virtually identical, and both monitors are made from plastics. Okay, some of the materials that are being used on the Alienware feel slightly more premium to the touch, but the Dell really has a good build quality too. A feature that the Dell doesn't have though is an integrated USB hub, which is also nice to have, I guess, but these small differences really cannot justify the much higher price. I mean, $110 for RGB, marginally better plastics and a USB hub really don't seem like a good deal. So yeah, what about the image quality? Or are these two just using the same display after all? I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if Dell were just putting the same display and electronics in a different case, slap an Alienware logo on it, add some RGB and sell it with a markup. Fortunately though, that's not the case here. Taking a close look at both panels, we can clearly see that these are different. The Dell has a very traditional subpixel shape, whereas Alienware's model has chevron-shaped pixels, which are a telltale sign that this panel is made by LG Display. If you put an LG Display panel next to it, the resemblance is pretty obvious. And the G2724D is using a panel made by TPV, as I was able to find out in the factory menu. Hard to say which one of these two panels is more expensive without knowing the exact models, but my guess would be it's the one made by LG Display. So this might explain part of the price difference. And performance-wise, the Alienware is off to a good start, offering a pretty large color gamut volume of 146% as opposed to the 121% of the Dell. Side by side, the difference is rather subtle though. You might be able to spot a bit more color saturation here and there on the Alienware monitor, but it's really not a massive difference. What's a bit more obvious though is the slight red-purple shift on the Alienware monitor. Like, take a look at the beach for example. The Dell on the left really does a better job here. And keep in mind that I've already adjusted both monitors to the same brightness and white point for this test. This mostly is a grayscale related issue. And with out-of-the-box settings, the Alienware would have even had a harder time here, because the factory setup is actually slightly worse than on the cheaper Dell. I mean, both factory setups aren't exactly great, which is okay considering the price of the Dell, but that's pretty disappointing for the rather expensive Alienware monitor, I have to say. I have the detailed color accuracy results and recommended color settings over at my Patreon as a public post, in case you want to look at them in more detail. But yeah, bottom line is that the color accuracy of the Alienware branded monitor is not better than that of the Dell, actually even slightly worse overall. And well, it doesn't stop there. This is the maximum full screen brightness, and the Alienware again gets beaten by the cheaper Dell. Even the contrast ratio of the Dell is superior. Pretty disappointing, I have to say. I mean, it's really not a night and day difference, but surely not what you want to see if you spend like $110 more on the Alienware model. Especially the brightness difference seems kinda odd to me, as this probably was a deliberate decision. Because in HDR mode, the AW2724DM is able to reach almost 600 nits full screen. So I don't know why Alienware chose to cap the SDR brightness at just 350 nits. Now you might have already noticed this brightness dip towards the left side of the graph. This shows that the Alienware gets way dimmer when only small parts of the image need to be bright. And that's because it's using pretty aggressive edge-lit dimming as an attempt to improve the HDR experience. And you can actually see this dimming in action. Take a look at how the backlight brightness is changing in the top right corner, for example. And yeah, it's rather obvious that the dimming algorithm isn't exactly doing a great job. It's pretty terrible. So yeah, the higher HDR brightness and better EOTF tracking of the Alienware is a bit of a moot point, considering the questionable dimming can't even be turned off. And anyway, the HDR performance feels kinda irrelevant, to be honest, as we're talking about edge-lit IPS panels. Neither of these two will give you a good HDR experience. So yeah, the last chance for the Alienware AW2724DM to redeem itself is gaming. And after all, Alienware as a brand is more geared towards gaming than regular Dell products, so this might be where it shines. Looking at the response times, the Alienware monitor indeed scores a great result. That's about 2 milliseconds faster on average than the Dell. This is with adaptive sync turned on. However, in typical Dell/Alienware fashion, the response times change when adaptive sync is turned off. This enables the Dell to catch up, now basically matching the response times performance of the Alienware. So the Alienware is only faster if you have adaptive sync turned on. And besides, this is how the 2 millisecond response times difference with adaptive sync turned on looks like. Yeah, that's a negligible difference. Same story with adaptive sync turned off. Don't tell me you're seeing a massive difference here. But what about lag? Well, both have the exact same display lag of 3.1 milliseconds, which is pretty quick for this class. If you want to nitpick, the Alienware has a slightly higher processing lag of 0.3 milliseconds, but it's able to make up for that with its slightly higher refresh rate. Overall, these two perform basically identical for gaming. And that's pretty consistent with my subjective impressions. There really isn't a noteworthy difference between them. I played a lot of Valorant on both, and both of them are great. Basically as good as a 165 to 180 Hz IPS monitor can be. The 15 Hz gap doesn't make a difference, the response times are quick on both, and so is the lag. And the adaptive sync performance is flawless on both monitors as well. Now, while this sounds like a positive conclusion, it's actually pretty disastrous for the Alienware monitor. I mean, it's being matched by the Dell G2724D when it comes to all the gaming related stuff, and outmatched when it comes to color accuracy, brightness and contrast. Like, don't get me wrong, the Alienware AW2724DM is not a bad monitor, not at all, but the Dell equivalent is an even better monitor and it's way less expensive. So yeah, don't waste your money on premium brand monitors, ignore the marketing and save some cash. And the G2724D? Well, it's definitely gonna be one of my new top recommendations in this class. Thanks for watching, bis zum nächsten Video.